Greetings, hello everyone. Welcome to the Mobile IT Community of Interest, the monthly meeting. Thanks very much for joining us today. But before we get started, I would like to review with all of you how to use the GoToWebinar system in order to optimize your experience today. You've all been put on default mute settings due to lots of, oops, we didn't want that. We've got a bit of a delay, a bit of a lag there for some reason. You've all been put on default mute settings due to lots of participants on the call. You're encouraged to please forward any questions that come up using the questions tab at the end or during, and we'll try to answer those once we've got through the presentation. There are some questions that are intermingled within the show, and we would encourage your participation with those. A number of questions about the use and implementation of mobile IT, but we'll get to those as we go through the presentation. In these meetings, in the community meetings, we could identify who is asking the question, if so, to foster participation. If you don't want to be identified or remain anonymous, then please you can let us know afterwards or just indicate that in the question. I mentioned about live questions. We've got those, I say, intermingled, and we'd encourage your participation in those. We're trying to get as much information from the community as we possibly can to help generate projects and also contribute to what the subgroups do. Yeah, to minimize, if you've not already experienced this before, if you want to minimize the control panel, it's the orange button at the top. You can just move that back and forwards. A bit about me. I'm Stuart Young and I represent FIATech in Europe and the Middle East. On behalf of all of us at FIATech, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for the Mobile IT Community of Interest. This is our monthly meeting for May. Today's presenter is John Fish from Ford, Bacon and Davis and S&B Engineers and Contractors. John will talk about the challenge that is being posed to the construction industry by the large number of projects related to cheap natural gas and how mobile technologies must be leveraged to address this challenge. Before going through today's agenda, I'd like to briefly introduce FIATech and this community of interest to those who are not members of FIATech and those who are participants in the new community. FIATech is a member-based organisation with an objective of accelerating the deployment of technology in the capital projects world. We have nearly 100 member organisations and partners, including academia and subject matter expertise, and companies throughout the world. We always welcome new members to participate in any of our activities. Our goal is to lead global development and adoption of innovative practice. And just to be brief, nothing synthesises the value of our organisation better than the perspective given by our members. As Ken Long from Pan Projects expressed, FIATech is the forum in which diverse specialists can come together with owners, EPCs, AECs and suppliers to discuss pragmatic solution. This is exactly the purpose of the community, and we encourage you to attend these monthly meetings as well as the subgroup meetings. The subgroup meetings, for anybody who wants to participate in that, please make contact with me. We had the initiation session last week, which was mobile software. We had a great number of participants and we've got some really good feedback from that session. Why mobile IT is the question. At the core of FIATech's interests, we are creating the mobile community. Technology, as a lot of you will know, has significantly enhanced project information mobility for construction projects, but it has only scratched the surface, we believe. There are still Many opportunities for the industry to increase productivity through improved project information flow. As we've mentioned before, at FIATech we strive to solve practical problems and the challenges associated to implementing mobile technologies. As a community, we hope to realise these potentials, and with your help we can make a real difference to the industry and increase productivity. The objective of the community is to bring together project stakeholders to improve efficiency in the field using mobile IT and share the knowledge to implement these ideas in the industry. The community is a joint effort between FIATech and COMIT. COMIT's a UK-based organisation which operates in the field of mobile IT. COMIT is an acronym, the Construction Opportunities for Mobile IT. It's been around some 11 years and collaborates on a number of projects with FIATech. Participants in the community will get together in two ways. Firstly, through these meetings, where all participants come together to learn about specific application and technology, and also through the subgroups, which I mentioned the first one took place earlier this month. We'll talk about that after the main presentation. If there's any questions come up about that. Deliverables from this community developed by the subgroups would include reports, pilots, excuse me, and use cases of the work being carried out. These can give an insight into the benefits, challenges and the costs involved in the use of new technology and applications. Furthermore, the work inside the community can become FIATech-wide projects through formal project proposal. This would increase the scale of a given project and involve all FIATech members. So, on to today's agenda. Introduction to the community. First item, today's topic. The presenter is John Fish. We've then got questions and answers. I mentioned there's a few of those intermingled through the presentation. Discussion on the subgroups, and then monthly announcements for the next meetings. So we've got John Fish presenting on the need to improve field performance through technology application. After the presentations, we will make the announcements. So, on to John. John tells me he's been hanging around for 50 years or more in the engineering and construction industry. He spent the last 35 years designing and successfully implementing 3D systems and integrated project information management systems, including procurement and materials management modules. He has been there and done that. Bit of a pun there, but John is currently in an initiative to provide innovative instructions for the installation works packaging. John today will build the case for the drive of automation in our industry. John goes on to mention that cheap natural gas has initiated a tsunami of projects that are about to inundate the industry. The only way we can meet this challenge and surf the wave is to use technology to automate. In short, we have to mandate to automate. So, over to you, John. Take it away.
All right, thank you, Stuart. As Stuart mentioned, what I really want to talk about today is that we have to look for automation if we're going to even come close to meeting the challenges that are coming our way in the next 4 to 5 years. And for those of you who are in the mobile IT community, I'm going to talk a lot about work processes, tools, and technology. And of course, mobile IT is a part of that. It won't be really towards the end where that comes into the presentation. So bear with me on that one. Okay, Stuart. Next slide. Okay, just a brief overview of S&B Engineers and Contractors, headquartered in Houston, Texas. We primarily play in the chemicals, the midstream, and the refining business. That's almost 3/4 of our business, a little over 3,000 employees. We're pretty much projects scattered all over the United States. We're basically a domestic player. We don't do much in the international realm. However, we have the absolute best safety record in the U.S. engineering and construction industry. And in our case, safety is a moral obligation. It's not just something we do. It's something that is a value that's built into our core core presence and everything we do. Okay, next slide. Also represent our sister company, FB&D, Ford, Bacon, and Davis Engineering. We're headquartered, process unit is headquartered out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We also have offices in West Monroe, New Orleans, and Louisiana, and then our MAPI office is in Greenville, South Carolina. Roughly 750 employees is the size of the Baton Rouge operation. As you can see that with the two business units, process and MAPI, we cover a wide range of industrial projects. So we're primarily industrial based, and most of my experience has been from the industrial sector. Okay? And that's the day right now is there's a tsunami of projects heading our way. Now, that tsunami is not traveling nearly as fast as we thought. It was supposed to have hit by now, but it's still out there. I am assured that the tsunami is still out there, and we'll talk about some of the data. The big issue here is there's not going to be enough people. There's not going to be enough skilled craftsmen. There's not going to be enough fabricators. There's not going to be enough shops. There's not going to be enough engineering talent to actually handle all these projects if we continue to do things the way we've always been doing things. So the challenge today is to rethink, to use technology, to automate, and see what we have to do to meet this challenge. Next slide. Natural gas is what's driving everything. You can see all the pockets of natural gas, the shale pockets that are cropping up all over the United States, and they're still finding more. They just discovered another one here in Louisiana. So the natural resources are here. We are blessed in many ways, and now we've got the technology to start taking advantage of these, and that's what's going to drive our industry forward. Next slide. This is the cheap energy is driving the manufacturing boom. Now look at these differences in the Brent, $17, Asia, $15, Europe, $10, the United States, $3.70. That is a tremendous cost advantage when it comes to the energy supplies, and it's the main reason why people are starting to build plants in the United States. Now the irony is, 4 years ago, CII and several other professional organizations predicted that there will never be another chemical plant or refinery built in the United States. So much for telling the future, by the way. So anyway, the boom is here, it's coming, and we need to figure out how we're going to deal with it. Next slide. This is the information from the LSU Division of Economic Development. There are $60 billion in new plants that are already scheduled for the state of Louisiana. It's predicted that we need 86,000 more craft workers over the next 3 to 4 years. 35,000 new and 51,000 are going to be due to attrition. Bear in mind, we got an older workforce. We'll show you that in just a minute. Now, the scary part is, if you look at Texas, and I asked him, I said, okay, well, what about Texas? If Louisiana's doing $60 billion, what's going on in Texas? He said, just double it. So you're looking at 120 and 150,000 craft workers, and that's just in 2 states. You've got work going on in Pennsylvania. You've got a housing boom coming up. You've got work going on up in the Dakotas. Canada's got a huge demand for workers. So there's just a tremendous amount of demand that's getting ready to break loose at any moment. Next slide. This was interesting, I thought. The workforce is growing older. You can look at the construction managers pushing up towards 48. Now, some people may think that's old. Some of us don't consider it all that old, by the way. But anyway, overall, our construction workforce is getting older. So there's going to be a lot of attrition there through injuries, through just can't work anymore, to just want to retire. Okay, next slide. Possible solutions. I kind of like number 1 and then the last 2. We're going to have to redesign the way we do work. We need to rethink the whole work processes. Everything we've done in the past, we need to really say, is that the best way to do it? And in doing so, we've got to figure out with the technology and the automation possibilities that we have today, how would we redesign work? How would we look at the way to accomplish things, both in engineering, procurement, and construction? Next slide. There are 3 organizations that have a line, by the way: FIATEC, CII, the Construction Industry Institute, and the Construction Management Association of America. Finally, these 3 organizations are working in concert. And let's go to the next slide. One of the things that we've zeroed into is the installation work packages. Now, this work came out of CII, but I think everybody has seen the value of getting the installation work packages, the information that we give the craft worker to actually do the work, to get that right. Next slide. And this all comes out of the advanced work packaging study. They call it enhanced work packaging. Some people call it workface planning. It's got many different names. But what it means is divide the work up in a way so that I can hand the crew the information that they need to do their work. So next slide. And here's the official definition of workplace planning. I'm not going to read this to you. You can read it as well as I do. But the main thing is to improve the efficiency and safety. And what we want to do is increase boot time. And I'll define boot time here in just a second. I think that's coming up. So let's go to the next slide. The amount of time that the foreman or the first line supervisor can actually spend in the field working with his crew. This is critically important, is what they found out. This promotes productivity and ensures safety for the crew members. And what the studies have found is that the foremen spend a lot of time running back and forth looking for stuff, finding stuff, gathering information, gathering materials. So one of our first objectives is to keep that foreman working with his crew, and IT, mobile IT, is going to go a long way in helping us to get there. Next slide. There's a time lag here, Stuart.
Yeah, it's all right.
Work packaging.
All right.
Okay. We need to give the craft what they need to be productive, and that means the engineering, the materials, the equipment, and tools. What we're finding is that the craft workers really do good work if they have everything they need to do their job. And that's management's job. That's our job as management to make sure that we give these guys a chance to be successful. And it's our job to make sure they have everything they need before they start on that week's work. Okay? Go ahead. Next one.
We're into the questions. We're into the questions now. Just bear with me a second. Okay. Can you guys see the question there?
Some people call this field work packaging. It's got many different names.
I think I've got a question that's just arrived on the screen. Just bear with me a second. That's okay. Okay. So does your project use installation work packaging? 73% said yes, 27% no. It's still hovering about. 67 yes, 33 no. So, 2/3 yes, approximately.
That's encouraging.
72% have voted so far, so if you haven't pushed the button, give you another couple of seconds. Okay. Thank you for that. Uh-oh. Right, I'll go on to the next slide. How's that, John?
Yeah, very good, really. It's not happening, Stuart.
No, it's just bear with me a second. I need to close the poll.
Okay.
Okay, how's that?
All right. Yeah, this is some research that came out of the CII study on why planned work is not done. Notice materials, craft coordination, and information are what I call the big three. And right here is where to hit that little down button there, so the little flyby will come in there, Stuart. Hit your next.
Yeah, hang on a minute. Hang on. Got a time lag.
The little down arrow.
Yeah.
Not coming in.
Just give us a
Go to the next.
Just give us a second. Just give us a second. She don't want to play.
I go to the next slide. Don't worry about it. What it is, we focus on these three right here. If you focus on these three, a lot of the problems in the field will go away. Not working?
There you go.
There you go. Okay. Okay, next slide. And here's your CII productivity research. Notice that when you look at all the things people do or the craftsman does in a typical 8-hour day, down there at the very bottom, direct work, 2.2 hours. Out of an 8-hour day, the average craft worker is on his tools 2.2 hours a day. That's our problem right there. Go to the next slide. If we were to just focus on if we could eliminate waiting, if we could eliminate tools and equipment and make those two problems go away, push that next slide. There's an animation here. So there goes waiting. There goes your tools. We're up around 5 hours a day. We can virtually push the animation again. We can virtually double the productivity on the job site. Get it again. And now instead of needing 80,000 new workers, I would only need 40,000 new workers. So these are the kinds of things we have to look at. The rest of the world has really tackled automation. They've used technology to improve productivity. We have not done that good a job on the construction sites. Next slide. So what I'm challenging here, the challenge is it's time to rethink everything. Next slide. We're looking at rethinking education. How many of you are familiar with the Khan Academy? They have turned education upside down. Phones have basically, you can control your house now with your iPhone. Entertainment, I watch Netflix all the time. Most of you are streaming movies. The old TV is starting to go away. Energy, cheap natural gas, abundant oil have changed everything. Transportation, now we're looking at driverless cars with all kind of automation, even automatic parallel parking. Manufacturing, we're going to insourcing, but back to different from outsourcing. We're looking at automation. We're looking at lights out manufacturing. Defense is using drones and robots. Construction, we're trying to think more like manufacturing than we are what I call stick-built construction. 3D printers are leading us to decentralized and additive manufacturing. Engineering, we need to challenge the discipline roles and the deliverables that we've always produced. And we need to think more in terms of assembly instructions. Next slide. So what we're really looking for here is breakthrough. We need a leap or an opportunity, a step change for our industry. I am convinced, if you look at that typewriter, I am convinced that we have taken what we did with a typewriter and merely tried to replicate that on a computer. And that is not the smart thing to do. Next slide. So there's a lot of barriers right here. One of them is industry standards and perceptions, and one of the stories I use there is the story of drywall. Now, drywall are the board as we use it, dry board. It was invented in 1916. However, hardly anybody ever used it because that's not the way we do things. If you want a really well-built house, if you want a quality job, you're going to use plaster. It was after World War II when the housing boom started And they finally figured out that there's not enough plasterers in the world to build all the houses that we needed for the baby boom coming up. And they also looked at the productivity, and it's actually 10 to 1, so drywall finally became the standard. But it took it like 40 years to become the standard. And that's what I run into with everything. From the time something is actually conceived, a new idea comes up, that time lag to implementation. It may be not 40 years, but it's probably in our industry in the 10-year range right now. Outdated codes is another one. I have source inspectors, and I read their reports, and I'm looking at these reports, and I see in here that he's got a nameplate rubbing. So I called Jimmy, and I said, Jimmy, nameplate rubbing? We're actually rubbing nameplates with a crayon or something to see what the nameplate says. I said, we got digital cameras now. Why are we doing nameplate rubbings? He says, we have to. We do both. We take a digital picture and a nameplate rubbing because the codes still require a nameplate rubbing. So you wonder how many codes are there out there that still require things like nameplate rubbings. Outdated procedures, org charts, work splits, the way we do work, turf battles, drawing lines in the sand where a guy can't do this, he's got to wait for that. Misaligned reward recognition. We reward one person over here for doing a good job, even though he made life harder on 3 other people in the downstream world. Profit and loss, silos of excellence, which happens to be one of my big pet peeves. And of course, the perennial, that's just not the way we do it around here. Next slide. The challenge is to rethink roles. By the way, you see that picture up there, the Etch-a-Sketch? I also think that if you look at the way we're using technology today, we're probably using 10% of the power of technology that's in our computers, the software we already own. I swear we're using technology on 3D design about the level of an Etch-a-Sketch right now. So there's just a lot better that we can do and we're going to have to do in the future. We want to rethink our vendor relationships, develop some more standards, and figure out ways to get that information from vendors, back and forth, fab shops, engineering, and to the job site, and then actually life cycle handover for run and maintain. Next slide. And rethinking everything, that's what I said, we don't want to automate what we do now. We don't want to just automate the doggone typewriter. We want to rethink everything because there's a lot of waste built in to almost everything we do. And one of our challenges, I call it ring out the waste. Go ahead and hit this slide and hit it again. This is a famous quote from Peter Drucker, and I really like it. We're doing a lot of stuff that we don't even need to be doing, and we're getting really good at doing it, but that just doesn't, there's not much payout in that. Okay, next slide. All right, unlearn. Here's the challenge. Look, you get that too quick. Go back for it. You're surprised me. But this is the unlearning. Now, people, okay, when you get my age, this is not something that's real hard to do because I forget a lot. And so unlearning is something that's relatively easy for me to do in some aspects. Now, and by the way, what I learned when I went to school, the guy asked, he says, what color, recently in the seminar, what color is the yield sign? Well, the yield sign is yellow, and hit the slide. In 1971, the yield slide was changed from yellow to red. But my generation learned that yield signs are yellow. And the issue is once your mind learns something, that's it. It's learned. So you really got to go back and unlearn to recognize that the yield sign is red. And that's a very difficult thing to do. So the thing is to raise consciousness of people that what we learned is not necessarily true anymore. The world has changed. Everything has changed. Our customers have changed. And we're still sitting there thinking that yield signs are yellow. Even though we're looking at red, our mind still has them as yellow. So we just don't realize what's going on around us. Hit the button again. This is the illiterate of the 21st century. It's not those who can't read, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and then relearn again. And again, relearn using the new technology, looking at the new market conditions. Get the button again. So again, our future depends on our ability to unlearn and relearn. Okay, next slide. And our overall objective is to improve the project delivery system, the overall project delivery system. And you got to think in terms of downstream users. What do they need to build? What do they need to fabricate? What do they need to purchase? What can I do to make it easier for people downstream to do their job? And that's going to be one of our biggest challenges today, to learn the new way of doing things. Okay? Next slide. UPS is a prime example of productivity. I was amazed. They just had a special a couple of weeks ago on it. 1 mile a day per driver is $50 million in fuel and maintenance. So they use big data. They put computers in all the trucks. They monitor everything they do. And they realize that if they only do right-hand turns, or if they design their routes so that they maximize the right-hand turns, 1 minute per day per driver equals $14 million in savings. That's phenomenal. Productivity increase since they started this, 1995, 90 deliveries. 2013, 120 deliveries a day. And that's without doing much different other than designing the routes and using a little bit smarter computer technology. First year reduced 1.5 million gallons and 14,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide pollution. So there's just one example of what one company is doing or can do by rethinking and looking at the work processes and wringing out the waste. All right, next slide. CMAA, the Construction Management Association, they're really focused that we've got to move construction to the factory. Modularization, a lot of different things, pre-assembly, a lot of different ways to do this. But in that Whiting refinery saved 20% on their cost, and they brought that thing in 2 months ahead of schedule. So there's some phenomenal things being done in the way of modular activity, and that's going to be the only way we're going to be able to meet some of the challenges coming up in the next 4 to 5 years. Okay, next one. Hit the button. There should be a floater. This came out of the modular, CII modular information, but you got modular design, standardization, standard modules. Come down to the other one. So you got standard modules, but what they really want to do is look at standardizing plant design, modularizing design, modularizing standard plant design. I know that S&B has developed what we call frac in the box, and that's a perfect example of this. If we can standardize and then even modularize the plant design, you can achieve phenomenal savings in productivity and specifically in speed to market. You can get these plants up and running in a phenomenal amount of time. Now, I'd like to tell a little story right here. Back in the 60s, when I was going to college, you had to pump your own gas and check your own oil and everything. And I went to the station, and I went back to get a rag to check my oil. And Joe, he was the mechanic. He was just cussing up the storm in one of the bays. And I looked, and he had a D-type 1950s type Jaguar up on the lift. And he was just cussing and raising cane. He says, "Look at that." I said, "What's wrong, Joe?" He says, "I got to pull the pan on this Jaguar." He says, and by the way, the engine was probably 6 feet long. It was a 6-cylinder. It was just inline, and it was really huge. He said, "There must be 5 to 8 different size bolts on that pan." And then he pointed over there to the wall. He said, "That's why I got to have all these wrenches and sockets and metrics and American size. I got $2,000 worth of tools over there that I got to have because some damn engineer decided that he's going to design the precise torque for every bolt on this car." And I said, "So what's the big deal?" And he says, I guarantee I can design any car in the world with 3 bolts. 3 bolts, that's all I need. I need a big one, I need a little one, and I need a middle one. I said, "Well, that's a pretty interesting idea." And he says, "Well, think about that." He says, "Then I only need 3 wrenches. I only need 3 sockets. Think of how much better the world would be and how much more effectively things could be done if you only had 3 size bolts on an automobile and 3 size wrenches." I laughed at the time. I thought that was kind of silly, and I dismissed it. And then when I got into the construction industry and I started applying that principle, the first principle we looked at was anchor bolts. We engineer almost every anchor bolt in a plant. They are engineered, they are sized precisely, they are incrementally different. You have to tag every one of them. They have to be custom manufactured. They have to be custom tagged, custom ordered, custom received, custom issued. By the time you take what I call the $20 average anchor bolt, if you just built an anchor bolt that was standard, in the neighborhood of 15, 20 bucks. By the time you tack on all the management from individual tagging, that bolt is probably worth several $100, probably approaching $400 mark. So you've taken a $20 item and you've made it worth $400. And I guarantee you 80% of the anchor bolts in any industrial facility can be done with a big one, a little one, and a middle one. And you don't have to do all that. You can buy these anchor bolts by the 100 or by the thousands, and they would be easy to recognize. So anyway, if you take the anchor bolt situation, if you take the 3 bolts of the car, optimization is our enemy. We have to learn to standardize. We've got to learn to use some common sense, and there's just tons of waste and opportunity built into our industry like that. Okay, next slide. We just created CII research team number 327. It's for innovative deliverable. And the challenge here is to look at all the deliverables that we're currently providing. What can we do? What can we do better? And we're looking at content, format, and then how we actually deliver the information to the craft. And it's going to be a really exciting team. So, next slide. And the premise is get the right information, the right person, the right format, the right time to support a decision or a process or activity. Okay? Next one. And we're rethinking the craft needs right here. We're looking at deliverables. We're looking at automation, fabrication, erection ISOs. Many of you have heard me rant on this before. I think that the traditional ISO that we produce today, which we look just like the one we've been producing for the last 50 years, except it's computer generated, has less information, and is harder to read, is obsolete. I think we need to get rid of that, and we need to replace it with installation instructions and fabrication instructions and planing instructions. So I'm not a fan of the ISO, and that's probably one of the first ones that I'm attacking right now. Looking at advanced work packaging, installation work packaging, YouTube videos. I know when I want to do something around the house, I don't care whether it's working on my plumbing, working on the car, or actually doing something on my handheld device. Matter of fact, I had to go get a YouTube device. I got a brand new Samsung S5, phone. I mean, it's a beauty. And I could not get the back off and change my battery to put a little chip in there. I had to go to a YouTube video to find out how to do that. We're not leveraging 3D to the advantage. Matter of fact, I just interviewed a construction manager last week. He said that the 3D model is next, that most people use, is next to workless in the field. It kind of sort of shows you what it's going to look like, but it doesn't do the guy in the craftsman any value at all. And he says, to make it worse, since they gave us a 3D model, that's back up in the construction shaft, by the way. They decided we didn't need plans and sections, so they throw about 2,000 ISOs at us. And we got to figure out where these ISOs are in space and then how to go, erect them and fabricate them. The model does not show field wells. The model does not show line numbers or display line numbers. And the model does not have spool numbers. Now, possibly you can click on a line and the line number might pop up, but the minute you take your finger off the button, it goes away again. So there's a lot to be desired on what we call the construction-friendly 3D model. Then there's communication and control, how we communicate this information, how we control changes to make sure that the field has the absolute latest revision of all the drawings. And that's where mobile IT at the work site and not in the construction shaft is going to come into play and add some real benefits. Okay? Next slide. These are some examples to stimulate the thinking. These are installation instructions, and we don't do a lot of this. But the focus here is on the steps, not so much the dimensions, but how to put something together. And I think we can do a lot more in this area to aid the crafts. And we got 3D models, and it really should not be that much more difficult. Next slide. This is another detailed instructions on how to do steam tracing. These things are all available, by the way. We don't publish them very well. We don't give them to the craft a lot of time, but they are available. They're out there now, and we're just not using a lot of this technology. Okay, next slide. This is my favorite. This is the two-sided ISO. Now, at Ford, Bacon & Davis, we developed a two-sided ISO probably about 10 years ago. We've never been able to use it until just within the last 3 or 4 months. We finally challenged the crew. We got all these reasons why you couldn't use it, why it was impractical and all that. So we finally blew through all that. We now, in the last 3 projects, we're doing the two-sided ISO. On the front side, you see the traditional ISO. And then on the back side, you see what it actually is going to look like when it's installed around the platforming and everything else. This is a tremendous help. We've shown this to the construction guys, and they just love this two-sided ISO. It's really doing a lot of good for them. Okay? And by the way, it costs a whole, but once you get the process down, it takes a whole 10 minutes per ISO longer to do a two-sided ISO, and the payouts are tremendous. Okay? Next slide. This is just another example of traditional fabrication and erection ISO. You can see how complex they are. And we get it in a work package. One of the work packages I looked at had 13 of these ISOs in the work package. And normally we would give the guy 13 ISOs, and they'd have to figure out where they are. And here's the new way. Now, S&B is doing a lot of this. Next slide. S&B is doing a lot of this in the new way. There are some other companies that are using ConstructSim that are coming up in some ways. Go ahead and hit the button again. And now we have a model shot. And there's the 13 ISOs, and with the spools called out, and the guy can go look at these and say, oh, that's where these things go. So now they have at least some idea how these ISOs fit together and what sequence they need to be erected. So easy to read views, and again, we are not using model technology overall. Some people are doing a really good job, other people are way behind in the industry. Okay, next one. And you can do the same thing with steel, by the way. Time for a question.
Okay, just bear with me a second.
By the way, the mechanics are taking a lot of time on this thing.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, can you see the question?
Yep.
Okay, 30% voted. Just give it a minute or two or 30 seconds longer there. I'll share the results of the poll afterwards.
Okay.
I'll get that to establish on the screen. Okay, a little longer. We've got 53% voted. $59. Okay. Any more takers for the vote? No, we'll leave it at that. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay. Next slide.
Just bear with me a second, John. There we go. Okay.
All right, now we finally got to the meat of this thing for your mobile IT users. And what does mobile IT at the job site can do? Instant access to specs document. By the way, we've had 3 workshops now. We're going to do 4 more workshops where we've actually met with people and asked the craft and the foreman, you know, how would they use mobile IT at the job site? What value do they see in it? And they came up with specs, documents, emails, RFIs, material status, etc. They'd like to be able to take a picture of an issue or a problem and send that back to the home office, say, help, this isn't the way it was supposed to be, or this isn't fitting the way it was designed. You can use it for forms on your QA, QC, nonconformance, warehouse, etc. If you can fill it out on a piece of paper, you can fill it out on a tablet. We noticed that it's primarily going to be used by the foreman, and they really wanted a camera on there so they could take pictures of the job site. And again, the objective is keep that foreman in the field working with his crew as much as possible. Boot time. Okay, next slide. Another question.
Another question. Just bear with me a second.
Okay.
Okay. Can everybody see that? Now, as I understand this, is 3 questions together. Is that correct? Everybody can see John, Fernando? 3 questions together?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay.
I only see one.
Okay, well, I'll if you can only see one, John, that means I've still got to drop down the other 2. Just bear with me a second. Yeah, I have to open the next one. Okay. So I'll close that one. Can you see that one?
Yep.
Okay, everybody done? That's 2/3 invoked. Let's get the next question on. Oh, we're still coming in. Okay. And that question? Okay, give you a few more seconds. All done? Great. Thank you very much for that. Okay, John.
Okay, the one thing that when we did our surveys, we looked at this. This is called the field kiosk or job site kiosk. It's got a 40-inch touchscreen. All kind of advantages to this thing, but boy, I'll tell you what, when we did our surveys, this really went over well. A lot of people thought there was real value in this or something similar to this, having the ability to see full-size drawings right there next to where the craft is doing work. So it looked like a pretty cool idea. Now, apparently commercial is using these things fairly extensively. They seem to be, well, easier to accept the new things in commercial than they do industrial. So we're in the process now of setting up some surveys or actually going out to some sites and actually getting feedback on how well these things are working in the field. But it looks like there's some real promise here. The interesting thing is, we'll go to the next slide. Well, you got a question on the next slide. Go to the question, and then we'll talk about the kiosk a little bit.
Okay. Last question. Mobile kiosks, experience with. Everybody see that one?
You can see it anyway. I can.
Yep.
I'm the only one that's got voice, I think.
That's interesting.
Do we have people who are using it?
We've got 78% not at all, and we've got 22% other. I thought there'd be a few more in the other categories, but oh yeah, we've got 8% currently using them.
Very good. Well, that 8%, I wish you'd get a hold of me because I would like some more information on the value of those. So
well,
a call for that.
We had a session on the Crossrail project. Crossrail are new members, and we went out and visited one of their projects on the new the Paddington station. And there's a joint venture there, Skanska and Costain, and we got to sort of see one of these smart TVs. Fantastic what's being done with that, and I hope at some stage in the near future we can get the team on board and present as you are, John. So it'll be a case of watch this space, because the benefits they're delivering are absolutely out of this world, and everybody.
That's what I'm hearing, by the way.
Yeah, everybody's bought into what's being delivered. The benefits at first glance they seem pretty impressive, but I think now the guys have started to use them, they're even more impressive. Everybody wants them, I think, is what I'm. So, yeah, okay. Well, I'll close that one down. That's devoted. Okay, and let's see if we can't move on to the next slide. There you go.
Next slide, and basically I talk about the thing here is they can actually see the drawings in full size at the work site as opposed to on a small tablet or something. And with a good PDF markup tool, you can actually annotate and circle things and write little notes and everything for the craft, push a button, print it out, hand that piece of paper to the craft guy. The craft guy can stick it in his back pocket, walk up on the scaffolding, 50 feet in the air or whatever, and do his work and have that annotated drawing right there ready. So there were some real benefits when we talked to people about this. You can access your RFIs. You can create our RFIs right there at the job set. You can make sure you've got the latest revision of the drawing that you're using before you actually do your work. You can look up maybe some missing vendor information that wasn't stuck in your work package. You can even check the weather report to see if there's going to be rain coming or whatever, or high winds coming that might interrupt one of the operations that you're getting ready to perform. You can do your safety toolbox meetings. There's just all kinds of things you can do with this kiosk at the job site. We talked about the installation work packages. We talked about it is what do you actually put in the work packages, and then how do you present your work packages? Are they just paper, or can they be augmented with the tablets, with the kiosks, things of that nature? So, okay, next slide. So there is a tsunami of projects that are coming this way, and there's a mandate to automate because it's the only way that we're going to be able to deal with the requirements that are coming down the line. Or there's going to get a lot of projects that just we are not going to be able to do it, period. So the challenge is to rethink everything we do, challenge everything we do, learn, unlearn, relearn continuously. We've got to learn how to make construction more like manufacturing. We got to standardize where possible. We got to give better information to the workers that's going to make it easy to build. So that pretty much wraps up my challenge for everybody, and I think that the IT community, the mobile devices, actually when everything hits the field is going to add a lot to how we get information and look at knowledge at the job site. All right. Thanks, everybody. Questions and answers. You got any questions?
Let me just check, John, see if there's any questions coming in. I've got one, John, just while people are thinking.
Okay.
Standard, one of the things that I've been asked in the past is how do you maintain security with one of these kiosks? Valuable piece of kit. What do they do with it at night on remote settings? How is it protected? How is it secured?
It's actually a lock box. In other words, it's like a toolbox if you look at it. And you lock it up at night just like you would any gang box or any toolbox. And you actually can chain them down, to something. Or they've got little forklift thingies, and you can take the forklift, pick it up, and move it back into a protected area at night and bring it back out to the job site in the morning.
Right, right. And what sort of cost? What's the cost of these units?
I'm working on that now with the preliminary cost that I heard with the computer and the screen and everything in there. It's in the $5,000 to $6,000 range, but I'm trying to verify that right now.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. We have got a question here. Just let me. Okay. We've got a question here that's come in.
By the way, a tough book today costs you about $3,600.
That's right. Yeah. Are there barriers to adoption that could attribute to workforce age, younger workers versus older ones? Are there some defensive, don't need it behaviours you see? John?
You mean from the older workers?
Yeah, sorry, let me read the question again. I think I might have cut it out for a second there. Are there barriers to adoption that you could attribute to workforce age, younger workers versus older ones? Are there some defensives that suggest they don't need it? I've certainly seen that. The
interesting thing was the older workers were really upset that we took the plans and sections away from them and gave them a 3D model that's over in the construction shack that's relatively useless to it. That was a big surprise to me. So what they're saying is of course, they want their plans and sections back. But the older workers weren't as much into the electronic as what I call the middle age. The ones we interviewed, those in that 30 to 45 range, they were very susceptible to tablets and things of that nature. And almost everybody, even from old to young, liked the kiosk. We didn't have hardly anybody that didn't like the kiosk. I think management was the one that was probably upper management that weren't in the field were the ones that were probably more resistant to the kiosk than the actual guys in the field.
Sure, sure. Okay, thanks to Dawn Fiander McCann for that one. Thank you very much, Dawn. I hope that answers your question. The next question we've got in has come from Jeff Braun. Does your solution help with materials management before issuing to construction? John?
How with what now?
Does your solution help with materials management before issuing to construction?
Oh yeah, well now you get into the whole, in other words, what goes into the work package, and you're getting into trial allocations. I mean, there's got to be a whole systems approach. It has to be holistic. You got to look at the way your procurement system feeds into your construction planning, your ability to go into a closed warehouse to see, are the materials actually going to be there for the crew? Let's say I'm planning for 3 or 4 weeks out. Are those materials there? Are they going to be there? How can I, bag and tag them, set them aside or reserve them to ensure that they're going to be there when that crew needs them in 3 or 4 weeks? Yeah, there's a whole system. What I'm touching you now is just looking at deliverables, looking at IT, looking at ways to display it. But yeah, there's a whole process, and materials are a big part. If they don't have the information, if they don't have the materials, if they don't have the tools, and they don't have the equipment, they can't do the work. So all of that stuff has to be in place, and it's all critical as a part of your, what I call, work package planning process. A work package is of no value if all four of those elements aren't in place.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that one, John. I don't think I have no more questions at the moment. Let's just leave that. Oh, I've got another question here. Just let me get that back up on the screen. Beg your pardon a second. What do you think can be done to promote a better understanding of field processes from upper management, owners, and vendors? John?
Well, I wish I had an answer to that one. I think that management just has, let's put it this way, I'm going to say home office management, has to spend more time in the field with their people, looking for and encouraging creative solutions. And the focus is, what can I do to help the guy that I'm asking to do the work? I mean, that's the only purpose that management at any level serves. Am I giving the guys that I'm asking to do the work, am I giving them what they need in the way of budget, schedule, materials, equipment, information, even training, and am I securing the fact that they're going to be safe in the process of doing that? That's management's job. And management literally has to get out there and spend time with these people and make sure that we are giving them the right things in the right way at the right time to get the expected results.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you. Well, if there's no more questions, I'm going to move on and wrap this up. I can just bear with me a second. Okay, I'm conscious now that we're at the hour. I want to just mention a couple of things before we close out. One of the outputs from the community is the subgroups, and the first one took place last Friday. If you haven't already taken the survey, please do. It's extremely important and valuable for us with the information that you provide to help us shape what we do going forwards. The survey is available online. You'll be able to get this recording later. We will make that available to everybody that's joined. So please do take that. You'll only receive a notification about the subgroups if you express an interest either by contacting us directly or taking the survey. So subgroups are quite important. We need your participation in that. If at all you can get involved and help shape and define what we do. The next thing I'm just going to talk about is the announcements. The next session is June the 18th, so please save the date. We're trying to work the third Wednesday of each month so that people can have that factored into their calendars. 9 a.m. US Central. Of course, I'm 6 hours ahead on GMT at the moment. The meetings after that, 16th of July, 20th of August, and so on. You will be notified in advance, but please try to save the date for that. Before I get on to the thank yous, I would like to mention we've got a European event that's taking place next week, Thursday and Friday in London. It's at the Siemens Crystal Building. Anybody that's got any interests in Europe that's on the call, please do get in touch with me. I can send you an invitation. You're most welcome to come along. There's all sorts of areas, topics through the FearTech roadmap, elements 1 through to 9. We've got some work on mobile IT. We've got some presentations from new members. We've got owners, operators. We've got guests. We've got some BIM presentations. We've got all sorts. There is an agenda on the website. Please do have a look. So that's the summit meeting, and that's the 29th and 30th of May, and it's in London. Join us on LinkedIn. We've got obviously the FearTech LinkedIn. We've got a subgroup, Mobile IT Community of Interest. There's some active discussions that are starting to take place on there. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. And do also have a look at the website where you'll find the link to the YouTube videos. I'd like to say thank you very much to John for his participation, production of some great slides there, John. thanks for coming on today. It was great to have you. Thanks to Fernando for his participation, and above all, thank you to everybody else for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks again. Bye for now.
Thank you all.
Thank you, John.